At dawn that day, Peter may have been biting his lip. The night was over, yet the nets were still empty. His hands smelled of seawater, and only silence drifted through the boat. For a fisherman, an empty net is not just a simple failure. It means the loss of that day's livelihood, and perhaps even the collapse of his own sense of dignity. That day, Peter had not merely failed to catch fish. Perhaps deep in his heart he was thinking, am I someone who must go back to where I started? Is this all my life will ever be? If I've labored all night and still nothing has happened, shouldn't I just give up now? And then, at that very moment, Jesus came. That is what makes this so astonishing. Why did Jesus come then of all times? Not in Peter's moment of triumph, when the boat was full of fish, not when he stood confident before others, but in that very dawn hour when he was most worn down, most humiliated, and had nothing left to say. I love this scene so much, because it shows us that the Lord does not come to us only when we are doing well. He comes even when we have nothing to show for ourselves. In Luke 5, Jesus steps into Peter's boat. After teaching the crowds, he speaks a very short sentence. Luke 54 says, "Put out into deep water, and let down the nets for a catch." It is brief, but there is something striking about it. This does not sound like comfort. To Peter, it may have sounded more like a burden, because he had already tried. In Luke 55, Peter says, "Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything." All of Peter's emotions are packed into that short sentence. Lord, I've already tried. Lord, I've endured through the whole night. Lord, I've done all I could, and still, nothing happened. Have we not said the same in our hearts? Lord, I've tried, I've prayed, endured, and waited. I've held on through problems with my children, my health, my family. But why is it still empty? That is exactly where faith begins. Not when the miracle appears, but in the very place where our own experience has already concluded that nothing can be done. Peter says, "But because you say so, I will let down the nets." To me, this is one of the most astonishing sentences in Scripture. Peter did not obey because he was full of certainty. He did not obey because the situation had changed. Honestly, he may still have thought nothing would happen, and yet he placed the Lord's word above his own experience. And then the next scene explodes. Luke 56:7 says, "When they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them, and they came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink." Just imagine it. A moment ago the nets were completely empty, and now they are so heavy they are about to tear. The boat that had been filled with silence is suddenly filled with commotion. The dawn that seemed destined to end in empty hands turns into a moment of overwhelming abundance. But something even more astonishing happens here. Peter does not shout for joy at the fish. Instead, he collapses. Luke 58 says, "When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, 'Go away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man.'" Why? It was not simply because there were so many fish. In that moment Peter saw someone greater than the fish. He saw a Lord greater than his failure, a word more trustworthy than his own experience, the power of God that instantly shattered the limits of his human understanding. In that moment Peter realized something. The real issue he had been wrestling with all night was not the fish. His real problem was not the empty net, but the heart within him that had trusted his own experience more than the Lord's word. So he falls down. "Go away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man." But the Lord does not step back from that confession. Instead, he speaks the most astonishing words of all. Luke 510 says, "Don't be afraid, from now on you will fish for people." This is the great reversal. Jesus does not say to Peter, "Now you finally understand." He does not say, "You failed, so you need more training." The Lord does not call Peter's place of failure the end. He turns it into a beginning. To a failed fisherman, he speaks of an apostle's future. To a man washing empty nets, he gives a calling to gather people into life. To a man who was ready to go back, he says, "Follow me." And Luke 511 ends like this. "So they pulled their boats up on shore, left everything and followed him." How astonishing is that? Only moments earlier Peter had been on the verge of giving up, and now he leaves everything behind and follows Jesus. In a single night, his whole life is turned upside down. But if you look closely, it was not the fish that changed his destiny. It was one word from Jesus, and one small act of obedience in response to that word. Dear friends, could it be that you are holding an empty net in your hands right now? A prayer that has gone unanswered for a long time. A child you have cared for with all your heart and who still hurts. A relationship you have endured for, only to feel lonelier. A body and heart growing heavier with age. And perhaps, deep inside, you have already reached your conclusion. This is not going to change. I need to let it go. This is as far as I go. But today, the Lord comes to that very place. Not to the center of your success, but to the dawn of your failure. And he says, "Go into the deep. Let down your nets again. Do not be afraid." Perhaps what changes your life will not be some grand event. Perhaps it will be one short word from the Lord. and one act of obedience that answers, because you say so. That day, Peter received more than fish. He found the true meaning of his life. He found a calling beyond his occupation, a purpose beyond his failure, a destiny beyond his resignation. So do not fold up your nets just yet. Do not tie up your boat just yet. When the Lord speaks, even the place that seemed finished can begin again. And that one act of obedience may turn the rest of your life into a completely different story.